Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beef Loaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends, Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas, as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. and you get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added, but at their normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carry-out or delivery needs or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. This show is also powered by you, the Loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid, and that's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest... He's a fan favorite in this format, the former co-editor-in-chief of BP Southside, a longtime contributor of Baseball Prospectus, and a veritable OG of White Sox Twitter, Nick Schaefer. Welcome back to the Au Jus, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Good to talk to you. It's been a minute since we've gotten together on this, and I don't think we've talked since all the Gets shit. I think we haven't really delved into all this, so I've been wanting to talk to you, and actually, we tried to set it up about a month ago.
Yep.
Schedules couldn't work. We're finally getting it locked up tonight, so it's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, they've won a few games since we planned on speaking.
Exactly. I mean, I'm just hoping for them to get to regular bad, so I can watch them on a daily basis. Like the first couple weeks, some of it was so, just like watching them never score. Like that grates on you. To me, I'd rather have the team that scores and gives up the lead, and that's at least exciting a little bit. The team that has 2 hits and no walks, and it's the only base runners, that's brutal for me.
Yeah. I mean, we like 90s. Anybody grew up watching like especially the worst versions of the 90s White Sox, it would be like, awful pitching, good offense, and at least I've talked about this. I think I talked about this, Mark, and probably talked with you about this, where that version of a bad team, at least like if you fall behind in the first inning, you can still keep watching. Like your team might score some runs, but if it's the worst offense of all time and they're down 2-0 in the first, it's like, just turn it off. Like there's no point. There's no point.
Yeah, there's no. You don't know what you're hanging on for at all anymore.
No,
like,
I don't know. It did kind of hit a point. It hit like an accelerationist point for me though, where I was like, let's see how bad this can get, man. Because like it was like fascinating. I don't know if you watched the NBA at all or followed it all, but the Pistons were so much more interesting when they lost like 30 in a row than when they would just finish the season at like unremarkable bottom 3 team.
Right. It's such a thing you never see. and so, when they just get boring bad. But the thing is, when I'm ingesting every day, Nick, I prefer boring, but like regular bad, not like historical bad, even though it would be fun because people would be coming in. And they're still not out of the woods yet with all that shit. So like, I'm not willing to just give up there. So anyway.
No.
I wanted to get into this with you because you've been very critical on Twitter, and I imagine that. No, specifically though of Getz, and I have been a guy who's been wanting to give Getz some chance here, but you've been making some great points on Twitter. So my first question for you is: you were an early, at least to me, you were an early vocal detractor of Rick Hahn. And it actually made me feel good when I was just coming on White Sox Twitter. I was like, oh, good. Some people are actually saying, fuck this Rick Hahn guy. And I was disagreeing with stuff. I was like, good. I can say something and I won't seem like an idiot. So far with Getz, how much of the Hahn thing are you seeing? How much similarities are you seeing between the guys in the infancy of his era?
So I want to, it's a really interesting question because I guess you could argue if there's similarities, certainly in a negative way, like that probably all goes above them to like the source. But right. I think I took some notes because I was like thinking about this question. They're both similar in that they're the type of like free agent category they've been forced to shop in. I'm sure they would rather sign huge free agents. I'm sure like if you asked Hahn or Getz like with a lie detector test, you'd say, would you rather sign an all-star or Martin Maldonado? They tell you the all-star, but like favorably, things that compare favorably is to Hahn is like he did bring in some guys from outside the organization, which hadn't been done in forever.
Yeah.
Granted, most of them were from the Royals, not all of them.
It's a
He
few non-Royals.
I mean, he's chased like he's done more roster churn. Some of that is like we'll see if that's just the initial burst of like get my guys in here and get my non-guys out of here. Like he's done more churn. I've talked about this elsewhere. Like the only year Hahn did that, the only year he was active with the back end of the 25 man or the 40 man was 2021, which was the best year he had.
Right.
Because he was like, oh, we've got a problem on the roster. Let's sign a million waiver wire guys until we find something that's like, tolerable instead of intolerable, like, so he's done that.
You're right. And when Hahn did that in 2021, he found freely available talent like Brian Goodwin that was like, hey, that's pretty decent to just plug in there. Not great, but whatever. Whatever you can get off the street, that's good enough. That's going to cover this up,
Yeah, so there's that. I mean, we haven't seen a draft yet from Getz. We haven't seen too many major. I mean, we've seen some major trades. But we haven't really seen how they've panned out yet.
Right.
I just saw your tweet right before I got on. I was ready to like destroy the Bummer trade, but then it was like, well, if Schuster's better than Bummer, like, are we really,
Yeah.
But even those peripherals are quite bad.
A little rough. Yeah.
I think the similarities are just like, I'm not convinced he can evaluate talent. Like, I just don't know if he can figure out, even because he's done a lot of signing veterans, like old guys, not right. You don't need a lot of imagination to figure out what like Robbie Grossman's going to give you, like it's kind of, we got a lot of data. Right. So that's similar. And I don't love that. I mean, I think he's probably, I mean, Santos hasn't. So here's the thing. I was like, he did the Santos trade, right? Santos for
Prelander, Baroa, and Deloach kid, and then draft pick as well.
Yeah, so I mean, Deloach not being able to get any major league at bats yet this year is concerning. He's like 25, 26, and
right.
Like, this is like the worst offense ever. So you'd think he could get some at bats, and then Burrow's
especially when you're ready to move Fletcher down in the minors. You're like, okay, well, this hasn't worked for a month. They didn't give him that long, but still. But this guy's not even on the radar. He's not the guy you're considering.
Yeah, and I mean, Santos, you can say, well, he's been hurt, but I noticed that as soon as Getz took over, that was when last August, that was when Santos started throwing the 30-plus pitch out innings, and maybe Getz came in and ruined Santos before trading him for nothing. So, we'll see.
Who knows?
I think, but the Maldonado thing, I think, is really like a really big screaming warning sign. Like, I was getting made fun of basically by minor league, by scouts and people in the industry, where they're like, hey, you guys added the worst player in the league last year. And he's like a year older, like, congrats. Cause like, you could tell the PR had been pushed of like, he's a coach on the field. He's a coach on the field. It's like, you could make him a coach off the field. He doesn't have to play to coach. Most coaches don't play. And his defense like cratered last year. And now as bad as like, you talk about things being, disastrously bad versus boring bad. Like, I kind of was like fast. I was like, how long can he go with just like one or two hits? Like, how long can we go into the season? Because I was kind of fascinated to see like, how long is this team going to start him? Like, if Corey Lee had hit like he did last year, would Maldonado have twice as many plate appearances? Would he just be setting the record for like worst player in like 130 years? Like, it's like, and there weren't. I went back because I don't want to just be like, this guy sucks and not have. There have been another option, like a better option. Right. And I was looking like, who are the free agents who he could have been looking at? But like Gary Sanchez was a free agent.
Right.
He's been good. He's a lot younger. I don't know why you need Maldonado to hold everyone's hand, especially when this pitching staff is actually quite old. You can talk about Nastrini and Cannon, but their ERAs are above 7. I don't know what magic Maldonado's done for them. Being a terrible pitch framer doesn't help anybody.
I was going to say with Maldonado, and we're gonna get to him in more detail later. Like, he's gotten to the point too where the average person who might buy into the fact that okay, well, he does these other things that you can't see. They've been watching him catch, and they're like, we just got rid of Yasmani Grandal, who had all these problems because he was getting old, he couldn't block and anything anymore. This guy can't block either, and I don't
No.
want to watch this every ball going through the 5-hole. And so a lot of the average fans that might buy the narrative, they're getting frustrated with a guy like this. So like that's like you're right, like a warning sign that oh boy, this is possibly fucked up here.
Opening day, they lost. I mean, they got shut out. The only run they gave up was because he called an 0-2 fastball to Javi Baez. Like, if he gives another
Everyone
17
in the
years in
park
the
should
league,
know
is
that's
he
no
gonna know
good.
to not
Right, exactly.
throw a fastball in the zone to Javi Baez on 2-strike count? Like,
Come on now.
DeYoung might be okay. DeYoung seems
Yeah.
fine. No, but short answer, like, the main similarity is projecting contemptuous confidence that is completely unearned, I suppose. Like, he's very much like, trust me, we know what the problem is. Like, we got this.
We
It's
got
like,
this.
all right, man, we'll see.
Yeah, what's your source? Just trust me, bro. That's what it is so far.
Yeah.
Now Getz came in here proclaiming a defense first approach. That's clearly not manifesting itself. Now, my question for you here, Nick, is how much of this is just poor construction of an idea? How much of it is you lost Luis Robert and you lost Yohan Moncada off this roster kind of quickly, and so there you go. Your defense starts deteriorating when you've got to move guys around and you don't have guys kind of playing their natural positions, and you don't have your Gold Glove center fielder forcing chaos here.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't help, right? Like, I'm not gonna. Are those guys injury prone? Yeah, but he inherited them. He clearly wasn't going to move them. You assume they're going to play good defense, whatever. I'll just give him a complete pass on that and say that's part of it. But he quickly ran into the same thing that Han did, which is the offense became so bad that he had to start punting the defense to try to salvage it. Like, we shoved Gavin Sheets into right field again. It didn't take long before that happened. So we got Tommy Pham in center at his age 36, 37 season or whatever. Like, it didn't take long. Some of that is because when you have a roster with Vaughn and Eloy on it, don't have a lot of flexibility. Again, he inherited those guys. He was head of player development when Vaughn came over and he can't hit. So I don't, but
this is true.
So it is funny to, like, it's like if you like trash the living room and then you're like, well, it's not my bedroom if it wasn't me. It's like, no, you trashed the living room. Like, that was you.
Yeah, you were part of this, sir.
Yeah. So it's like, sadly, it looks like, Anderson was physically compromised to the point where he certainly can't play shortstop anymore. He may not be a major leaguer anymore. You need to get a new shortstop in. You don't want to block Montgomery long term. You don't want money. DeYoung seems like, sure, that's fine. Rebuilding season, he's fine. He'll field his position. Not as well as we'd hoped, but he's doing it.
It's looking rougher than I would have thought. Nicky Lopez actually does look good glove wise. Like, he's as advertised, in my opinion, there.
Sure.
But so, that might be the only guy.
You upgrade those two spots, but Maldonado's a big part of it. Like, you kicked defense into the toilet with that guy, and the fact that you didn't know that scares me about like your evaluations. And I think part of it too is that, as we jumped on Tim Hill, who's 33 or 34 or whatever, just chucked a infield hit into like right field, and a runner scored from first base on a grounder in the infield. And Benintendi keeps missing the cut, like not throwing to the cutoff man, and Lopez can't stop getting caught stealing. I know that's not defense, but like, these were your guys. These are your like veteran guys, and I know that like DeYoung having a ball go between his legs, I don't consider like a mental mistake in a way, because it's like, look, if you field 700 ground balls, you're gonna boot one, you're gonna miss one, whatever. That's just gonna happen to everybody. No shortstop doesn't do that in a season. But like, Benintendi not knowing to throw to the cutoff man, like, dude, this was the one thing you promised us would be better. This was the one thing that was like in your control, and it's just not meaningfully better. I mean, I would say just getting like DeYoung's a better defensive shortstop than Anderson at this stage of their careers, and Nicky Lopez is a good second baseman, but like, okay, like if that's all you could achieve, that's all you could achieve. Like, ooh, that's pretty bad. And defense is only going to help your team. So it helps. There's knock-on effects.
Right.
Like pitchers need to get fewer outs, they throw fewer pitches. More of your better pitchers are throwing a greater percentage. It helps a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong. And I thought the plan was like we'll go from 60 to 70 wins by being the 20th best pitching staff instead of the 27th. We'll be the 10th best defense instead of the 30th.
Right. None of that's happening currently. No,
and
everything
I think
is yeah.
But I think trying to get like 10 wins better just on defense was like pretty. I mean, it's a low. You aimed low and you missed low. I mean, that's the story of this organization, I guess.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It's been rougher to watch after an okay start, and then I don't want to put it on Luis Robert, but you're right about the offense got so bad they had to start punting stuff, they had to start throwing people. I mean, they've got Robbie Grossman out there. You just have a lot of guys out there who you're hoping that they get on base a couple times during the game. Like, you can't.
Didn't they already run a Grossman Pham like Sheets outfield?
Yeah. Yes.
Like that's got to be one of the worst defensive outfields you could possibly do, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that's absolutely terrible. And it's funny because Vaughn hasn't hit a lick, but his defense looks much improved this year. I was like, I've been picking on Vaughn for all these years. I'm like, well, it looks like he at least worked on his defense in the offseason. Maybe he'll be okay there. But a defensive first baseman, who cares? Like, good.
He's not like Keith Hernandez or Albert Pujols or John Olerud or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly right. So you did a show on your YouTube channel with Mark Primiano, Dr. Primiano. I love his tweets with the kittens and everything, and about some of this early Get stuff. And you had a bold take, and your bold take was that you were not convinced Brian Bannister is still the pitching guru that he had been proclaimed to be. You thought that he might be washed a little past his prime. Sitting here today, do you still hang on to that bold take? You're feeling good about it, or what?
So, there isn't much evidence that it was right or wrong, I would say, so far. I mean, I don't know who the big Brian Bannister pitching win would be this year. I know Fedde's pitched well, but it's not like Bannister was in Korea helping him overhaul his arsenal. So I don't know who. Like, I mean, maybe he's continued to help him as he's gotten here. Maybe he helped identify Fedde as like, no, this will work over here. Like, I'm not in the room with those guys, but I don't know who Jordan Leisure, I guess, has been all right.
Yeah. But it almost seems like a continuation of what he already was before anyone showed up here. That's what it seems like to me, at least.
I don't know one or the other. Like, in defense of Bannister, he has been in the past someone who wanted to be forward thinking, somebody who wanted to be discovering new stuff and pushing the boundaries and improving things. But the people I talked to in the industry when he was hired were saying like, yeah, he's, he was that at a time, and the league has continued to move and he hadn't kept up, but maybe he's caught up since. I don't really know. It was whatever idiot head of programming on my show had us do a negative hot take, and then that was the one I went with just because I wanted to get it out there. I was like, I've heard some things that throw some cold water on the excitement around this, but hey, he's from outside the org, so
it's better than what we had, but maybe not as progressive as we were hoping with.
And it makes me wonder too. It's like Ethan Katz was like helping you pick what pitchers you were acquiring, but now he's got like, I don't know. Now he's got a babysitter or something. I don't know what's like going on with that. But,
put someone over top of him. Yeah, that's.
What do you like? I don't know.
I like the idea of him. I guess I'll say because I've seen what you had seen before, Nick, and he seemed like someone who, to me, is someone who. I've done some advantage play stuff in my life, so advantage gambling and shit. He talks like one of those people, always looking for an edge at something, right? And that's a good thing. That's not something I've ever heard out of White Sox people. So I was like, oh, this is
the org lacks.
Something, yeah. At least someone is thinking about some stuff. Maybe it won't work, but he's at least going to try some things. And so, yeah, the early going here. I mean, I guess Crochet has looked better than I might have imagined, but I mean, he's starting to run into, pitching more innings and stuff. But otherwise, you're right. I don't know that there's anyone like, even they brought up the kids, nothing there. Chris Flexen's looked horrible and pretty good in some starts. So I don't know. Like, I agree with you. I'm not sure I see anything yet, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that maybe
Yeah,
something will happen.
and it's early. I mean, you'd hope a guy like that would be also, working with your minor leaguers and
Right.
doing pitch design stuff that might help you out. But I always think of that old Simpsons line when Bart's in the remedial class and he says, "How are we going to catch up to the other kids by going slower than them?" It's like, yeah, you hired Bannister. You're like, all right, you've caught up to 2015 or whatever. But
It's very Getzian from what I've heard about Getz. It's like he's bringing them back up to almost modern ages when they were 15, 20 years behind. On the field so far, it's been an atrocity. Now the early talk on the street was very positive about the White Sox changing course here. Instead of paying top dollar to build a bullpen, we're going to build a bullpen out of just scraps around here, and we're going to take whatever we can find and scoop up. And it hasn't looked that great so far. Nick, is this just a matter of bad design by choices or selections, or is this just sometimes shit happens when you try to build a bullpen on the cheap and maybe not all the parts fit, or maybe you caught some guys who aren't having a good year, because there are a few guys having nice years out of that pen, but in total it hasn't been great.
Yeah, I think if they had been trying to contend or in a position where they should have been contending, you'd like to see at least a little bit more invested in it, just to have a couple more guys we're confident about. But I think some of it is sequencing, where I think they were pitching pretty well when the offense was scoring like half a run a game. And then as the offense started kind of looking somewhat functional, then the bullpen hit its downswing, so it didn't sync up well.
Right.
So it's like, oh, we finally got a lead, and then they blew it. But so there's some of that. I think I don't hate. I don't. This was something like I don't hate the approach. Brebbia got hurt in spring training. Maybe he's
Right.
Taking some time to get it back together. Steven Wilson's looked pretty good, although you did trade Dylan Cease for him, so he's looked pretty good.
Well, I mean, he's part 3 or 4 of that, but yeah, you're right. You're right. That's how you had to acquire. Jordan Leisure's looked fine. I mean, I think people have been more impressed with Jordan Leisure than I have. I thought Jordan Leisure he's kind of thrown some strikes, but he hasn't been overwhelming. He hasn't been striking people out, and it's just he's okay.
Yeah, it's like, if for this season, this is fine. The Davy Garcia, I liked that gamble. I still like that gamble. Part of the problem, and this comes up everywhere on the roster, and it's been increasingly so, like I said at the beginning, like it's a weirdly old roster, and a lot of the younger guys who, even if you didn't look, did I think Davy Garcia was going to be like go back to being an ace, like global top prospect he used to be? No. Did I think Dominic Fletcher was going to be Adam Eaton 2.0? No. But like, they were couple of the only guys under the age of 30 on the roster, and they immediately got dumped. And it's like, I think they're panicking so hard that they were on pace to lose 140 games, and rightfully so. But it's kind of embarrassing that they thought, no, we're set. This is our plan for the season, and then it was like so much worse than they realized. And then they're frantically like, oh no, what can we do? What can we throw at this? And it's embarrassing, and it kind of feels like a further setback. They could have done more in the off season to buffer themselves against, granted, probably worse than even I expected. I thought they'd win 60 something games, but now I don't. So
yeah, an overwhelmingly bad start, and then kind of the overcorrection. But I mean, in some ways, when you're not scoring anything, I mean, you got to do something about it. I mean, in a way, Nick, I'm almost shocked that someone, and I know it's a mirage what we're seeing right now of him, how much he's hitting, but that some freely available talent like Tommy Pham just lays there and can be bought up, and it's like, this is like a 2-win player. Like, I don't care, he's 36. He's going to hit enough. He's going to be decent. Like, I'm like, in a way, I'm shocked that is the case.
Yeah, and he's one of the few guys that they've scooped up to throw at this who could theoretically be traded for literally anything in a month or two. He was traded last year. He helped the team he was traded to in the playoffs. He's I don't know Tommy Pham personally. He's got some pretty colorful stories out there as like a clubhouse guy. Like, I don't know if that's like the type of thing that's more salacious than it is meaningful. But
I was gonna say, it sounds like it. We put my sock somewhere in the case to dig in on it, and it sounded more like it was a little more like wrong place, wrong place, wrong time type stuff, and also that like there's a little more to him slapping Jock Peterson, a little more on Jock Peterson's side than you probably actually heard. So like
Okay.
maybe
Fine.
he's just a little more of an intense guy than anything else. But I mean, at this point, I'm happy with the White Sox taking a gamble like that. These might be some of the gambles they'll have to take as you get further on. If there's a misinterpretation of someone like that and they're freely available, those might have to be our guys because it's so bad with this stuff.
Yeah, normally, like, it wasn't the type of thing that I would really care about, but it was like, why was he a free agent for them to acquire? I don't really know. I mean, maybe it's the same thing with Eddie, where yeah, they were able to offer him a competitive contract, but also offer him playing time. Because like,
Yeah, maybe.
like you will take every start no matter what. Bam,
That's
like
what the next
dude,
job
you're gonna
is.
start for us no matter what. You're not gonna be like a platoon guy for us. Um, so I'm fine with that one. It's just the cumulative. I mean, like any one of these guys, like Grossman. Yeah, I don't have a problem with Grossman. I don't have a problem. I mean, like Kevin Pillar said that like homophobic stuff a while back, but you know, whatever.
That's
He
not
seems
great.
to have. But like a lot of these guys in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with them. But then the net effect is like this roster is ancient. Like, he's really old.
You can't have all those guys. You plug those guys
No.
in here and there. They can't be everything.
You're
like that you
rebuilding
got.
and you're very old. It's a strange. DeYoung's younger than I realized, but still, it's
He's like 32 or something like that. That's still not young.
he's 30.
Shortstop. He's 30. Oh, okay. I thought he was older than that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not as terrible, but I guess it's not great for shortstop. We talked about the struggling offense here, and two guys for my money are pissing me off tremendously. Would you do anything right now with the Andrews? Would you do anything different? Benintendi and Vaughn. What would you do? Because these guys are killing me. Other than Benintendi's 2 home run game, which I was in attendance for and couldn't fucking believe. I couldn't believe the first home run, and then the second home run, we were going absolutely nuts in the stands because like, how does this guy have 2 home runs in a game? You know?
I know. I mean, you must have been so confused. Like, did you think someone else hit them at first? Like, were you like, who's that? Did I tell you about the time at Yankee Stadium in like 2016, I think, or 2017, where I really needed to get up to use the bathroom, and I was like, all right. We got Gordon Beckham and Mike Olt coming up. Like nothing's happening this inning. I'm gonna go. And they both homered to my seat while I was up. I was livid. I was happy for those guys. But,
Incredible.
yeah. So what I would do. So I've got one very boring take and one hot take that is sincere. So Vaughn, this is obviously a bad situation where you spend a number 3 pick on a guy. Either you ruined him or it was a stupid pick or both. But fortunately, you're in a rebuild. You're not going to find a better player than him to play every day. Just run him out there, give him this season, and figure it out. Give him give him the rest of the season, see what he does, work at it. Maybe he'll show you something, and maybe he won't. And you'll at least learn one way or the other. You're not going to do that thing where you're like, well, maybe forever until it's like totally pointless.
He's got this amount to earn his next arbitration raise, and that's it. He's got the 500 plate appearances that are left, and that's all you got left.
And then you trade him to Tampa to be a platoon all-star or whatever. Yeah. It feels like he's had some bad luck on batted balls so far, but maybe that's just because he hits the ball like hard in the air so rarely that when he does and someone catches it, it feels like oh, come on, like let him get this one, please. Benintendi, like I'm not trying to sound like a sports radio call-in guy. Like, what's the argument against cutting him?
Yeah, I mean it should be a sunk cost situation, and like who cares? Like give someone else the playing time at this point, right? I mean I mean it would be non-Reinsdorfian, but they did do that with John Danks, so and they did that with Jeff Keppinger, not as much money, but still it has been done in the past.
I just don't know. Like I know they won't. One of the most irritating things about Grifol, which is saying something, is how he refuses to do anything about his veteran players. He refuses to say anything. People use the word accountability a lot, and it kind of drives me nuts because they never say what they mean. Like, what does accountability mean? They whine about like Eloy not running as hard as they want to first base or something like that. It's like, well, what do you want them to do? Like, do you want them to bench him for a week? Do you want them to go out to the reporters and say, look at this guy, he sucks? Like, what do you want them to do? For me, like Benintendi's in a place where like if you airmail the cutoff man multiple times and you're the the player, you're not 40, you're not physically compromised, you're
Right.
not a rookie, it's not like you're confused or panicking. You're in your late 20s, you're making a ton of money. Like, you should know where to throw the ball. If he does that, like, I don't know why he's not getting called out by the manager. I don't know why he's not getting benched for a week. If you actually want to show, you could not stop saying the word culture for forever.
Right.
And it's like, well, what is this? What is it? Like, Lenine Sosa and Oscar Colas get like humiliated in public, but like this
Right.
doofus can just like suck at everything and just because he's like, I don't know, an expensive white guy, he's like just gets off the hook. I don't understand it.
Yeah, right.
Like, I
He's
don't,
tough
but
on there.
literally,
He's tough.
like, you're never trading him for anything.
Right.
No one's trading for him unless you want to wait till what's the last year of his contract, 2028 or something, and
Yeah, 27
try
or
to
something. Yeah.
like, what's his slugging percentage be by then? Like 100? Like, you're not trading him for anything. He's taking up plate appearances on a rebuilding team. He's clogging up the roster in like, I just cut him. Let him sign somewhere else. Let him sign for league minimum with a contender if he thinks he can salvage his career. But like, what's the point? I don't get it. I don't know why he's here. He probably doesn't want to be here.
I love it. It would free up some plate appearances. At a minimum, it would give them to someone like Robbie Grossman, who I know will give me an honest plate appearance.
Or Fletcher,
or bring Fletch back up. Yeah, exactly.
I don't
give another
understand.
shot.
But all the talk about accountability, all the talk about culture, all the talk about effort, hustle, defense, like, he is, to me, just like very emblematic of all that stuff being a lie.
Right.
I mean, and that's what kills me about this season almost more than anything, is that they aimed at all these tertiary factors. That was all they put them front and center. Said the most important thing, not being good at baseball, the most important thing is that you get a lot of dirt on your uniform and you grind the bat into sawdust in your hands and you salute and to your manager or whatever. And to their credit, it's been a really crappy season, and the clubhouse by all accounts is solid. They seem to like each other, but it was so funny to see all the like talking heads and who were hyping this approach up, and
all the real baseball-y guys trying to say, "Oh yeah, this is how you do it.
This is how you do it. It's about effort. It's about hustle." And all the quotes about them being like, "Please, you're coming to take me for this hot take." I don't know if this iron. They're all saying like no team has ever worked harder or gotten along better. And it's like, man, and you guys are like the worst team in 120 years. Maybe that stuff is secondary to being good baseball players. Like, it's and that's not to say none of that doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all, but I think it's like cart before the horse stuff. It's most teams that
talent first, then all this shit.
Most teams that are winning get along. Most teams that are losing get frustrated and start sniping at each other. That's just kind of how almost any team. So
that's how any company is. That's how that's how any group of people get. I
think Chris Getz like made a lot of talk. This was the unwarranted confidence thing where he talked real tough about how we fixed our IQ and you're going to like how we play and we're going to play fast, and it's like, guys, this is worse. This is even worse than before. Like, you made it worse. What's your answer to that? Because you said that was how you fix it. That's what you said, and you said you've achieved the inputs you wanted, and the outputs are worse. What do you have to say for yourself? Like, I don't.
Yeah, there's nothing they can say to themselves. And speaking of that, I want to get to a guy who I was hoping we talked a little bit about him up front, but is Martin Maldonado's amount of playing time driving you to drink, Nick? This is my question, because there's a few people out there in Sox Twitter who I knew were anti this move like the second it happened. Like, a lot of people were relieved it wasn't Salvi Perez, and now Salvi Perez is hitting 350 and has like a billion home runs. But you were one of the first ones out there, and now it's going as bad as it possibly could. Is this move driving you to drink?
Yeah, I mean, every time look, parenthood has actually made me drink less, which is nice. But because he wakes up at the same time every day, no matter what.
Yep.
But
you got to take turns who can drink that night.
Yeah, exactly.
The other one will get up.
Exactly. But it's just it's really frustrating because you could see that this car went off the cliff last year, and I don't know who you were bidding against to give him this much money. It doesn't matter, but you gave him $4.5 million, which is like more than you gave a lot of other guys
Yeah,
or
right.
opted not to do. I mean, you brought in Mike Clevenger instead of Michael Lorenzen, for instance, who would have been about $4.5 million. Fortunately, Corey Lee's been very surprisingly good, so that's kind of given you some cover. I thought Max Stassi was a decent idea. It seems like he's physically just can't go anymore, which is really sad. I was really rooting for him, and I thought he was an interesting, like, to Getz's credit, I thought that idea could have worked. But
Yeah, I like that approach too, Nick. And then he had the little setback in spring training. Okay, he's going down. He's gonna. And then I see him going to 60-day IL, and I'm like, oh man, that made me sick to my stomach for that poor dude. It's like, man, you've been through all this shit, and now you're gonna be out for this long. God.
Fortunately, he made enough money he made a good living off of this sport. But I thought the plan was, in the aggregate, was good enough. But Maldonado's been like 2 standard deviations below playable, and playable being like the lowest threshold of usable.
Right.
And you heard they were pushing it so hard. He's like a coach on the field. He's like a coach on the field. And it's like, what is the coach for? What is Drew Butera for? What does he do here? And, I feel bad. It's got to be hard to not be able to do something that you used to be able to do at an acceptable level. But he's, this happens to every player in their late 30s, early 40s. Like, it just makes me wonder, like, what do you guys think is important? Do you guys understand how any of this actually works, or do you guys have some ideas that you think work and don't? And it's just really, especially when you don't pitch hit for him in like close games and things like that. Just really basic stuff. I mean, people pinch hit for their defensive specialists all the time. If he can't handle that emotionally, then that's like the last domino falling. Like,
that's terrible if that is the case. No, I agree with you, Nick, and I think like there could be positive effects here, but they're managing it so badly. Like, and this is, I mean, Pedro. I was the first guy out on Pedro. I just never believed in any of this shit. But
good for you.
But like he just is managing it so badly. You mentioned late in games he's not hitting for him, which is just like the most obvious thing. But like he could be diluting him more and more, and maybe he'll start doing that because Corey Lee's playing so well. But it's like, yeah, if you want to just have that influence around, and you got the sunk cost already, fine. But get him out of the lineup a little more. Hit for him when it makes sense to. Don't leave him in there in situations where he's going to have to block somebody throwing a hard slider or something like that late in the game. Like, take care of the guy a little bit, if you will.
You're like I said, you're sabotaging your pitchers because you can't frame pitches, you can't hold runners, you can't do anything where he's just physically too. I'm sure he knows what to do, but he can't do it anymore.
It's just over. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I also don't. This is something my dad used to always say, and I always, he always had his theories about it, and it's interesting to, like, as I get older, is like seeing some like, oh yeah, I get why this was a thing. He used to always say, like, it's important to show the guys in the minors that if you do what we ask you to do and you do well, that you'll be rewarded. Like, that's important to do. Why is it, like, what's he doing that Carlos Perez can't do? You're telling me Carlos Perez can't have an OPS of 200? Really?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Let that guy come up and get his pension, man. Like, why are we, like, this is a rebuilding year. This is a disaster season. You don't, again, the pitching staff's ancient. They kept saying, oh, he's going to help these young pitchers. He's going to help these young pitchers. It's like, who?
Who's here, right?
Flexing.
Crochet, Kopech. I mean, that's it, right? Jordan Leisure.
You're telling me Carlos Perez can't catch those guys? Like, I just don't understand. It's one of those things where it's like, you can't. They clearly told Schriffen and all these guys to push him early in the season, and I think that probably has died down. I don't know. I don't listen as much, but as I did at the beginning of the year. But it's like, you can't. Like, I don't think any of them can actually say it with a straight face anymore. It's just too disastrous. I mean, it's. I don't know, what's the worst season anybody's ever had hitting over like 100 plate appearances? Because he's on pace for it.
He did homer the other day, which was sad.
It's so weird. So weird.
Ian in the comments says Carlos Perez, they're not even catching him in Charlotte anymore. Apparently,
Oh, really?
they're letting Chucky Robinson and Adam Hackenberg
Oh,
be the
geez.
catchers. So
All
Adam
right, yeah.
Hackenberg has kind of shot up the rankings there. So
All right. Well, somebody. That's what my point is. Like, you can't do worse than this. So
yeah, let someone else have a shot here, and you don't need to rush Edgar Carroll. So let one of the guys on hand have a shot at being the number 2, and let Corey Lee run for a little bit. I can't disagree with that. A month ago, I would have said no. Let's wait out a little bit, but the look has just been so bad. It just I can't.
I mean, again, you talk about accountability. Like, you can't. Sorry, you can't have an OPS lower than like an acceptable batting average in like mid-May.
I'd still expect to play all the time. Now we've been down on a bunch of stuff, but I'm gonna a little glass half full here. Eric Fetty seems to be a rare low end of the free agent market victory for the White Sox, and I say rare. I mean, going back through the Hahn era, they had hardly any of these, and this was one of the things I was watching for with Getz because we know they got a shop at the bottom of the market here. Fetty looks really good so far. What do you think about his performance early? And also, do you think they could replicate this kind of thing?
So I liked. This is me just saying now. I think you can go back through my tweets if you have really nothing better to do. But at the time of the signing, I really liked it. I was really glad they got him, especially in the situation they're in, where it's like if he made no improvements in Korea, if he was just the guy he was when he left. You still could use that guy who's going to throw 150 innings of, bad but usable. He'll get through his outings, and then the ceiling is like anywhere up from that. And you paid him to be an innings eater, and he's with an upside. And I really like the idea of, a former top prospect who was in bad organization who clearly made some changes and. It's been really cool. He's his style of pitching is really fun. The fact that he has so many pitches and he can kind of, like the Twins tried to do an all lefties lineup against him. So he was spamming his weird, like, I don't know, like arm side run. It
was fun to watch when he was doing that.
It was cool. Do I expect him to have an ERA under 3 all year? No. I think they absolutely should just trade him for the most they can get, sadly, because I don't see how you're good in 2025 or good enough where it's like they need to cash in a chip at a high watermark sometime. They never did that with Hahn. They need to do it now, which makes me sad because I like him. Happy for him. And I will give flowers to all of these people I've been criticizing relentlessly. Like, this was smart. It was good. It worked well. Is it replicable? David Garcia, I guess, was kind of the same idea where it's like, apparently, I think he was trying to chase, he had messed up his delivery trying to chase like more movement on a particular breaking pitch. I can't remember what it was. And it had totally screwed him up. His fastball still had good, why am I blanking on the word, characteristics. And people really liked him as a prospect. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, give this guy some run. So I like that idea of that's the whole point of Bannister. It's the whole point of having the good defense theoretically, and then the super duper coaching at catcher. But is, you polish it, you get the most out of your pitchers, and then either you trade them or you have good pitchers. So if that's the part of the Getz plan that has always like been the most coherent to me and the most persuasive to me, and they've shown. I didn't hate all of their bets, like their gambles on that either, but. Fetty's one of the few that's like worked out. So
right, that absolutely looks legit. Now you mentioned they should cash in the chip, and one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately, Nick, is I've seen a lot of discussion about this on Twitter already because people are looking and like, well, he's a real starter, and they've been like in trade everything mode. I've seen a lot of people, what the fuck? Let's keep our good players. But do you think that in this era of the White Sox, at least the era before we have a different owner, a mega super spending owner, that they should be cashing in these chips even when they have a decent team and trying to flip and be turning and stay ahead of these types of things and always be pushing, kind of like not so much like the Rays, but there are teams that are a little more proactive in saying, look, we're at a spot with this player. This is as valuable as they're going to get. Like you mentioned, at the high point of their value where you can't trade them, cash it in. and then let's go try to find the next one and see what we can get for this, because they're never going to spend at the top of the market. And they may never develop any real superstars. They might be one of these goofy teams that are going to be in the middle. Even when they get it right, they're going to be in the middle bouncing around, and they're going to need that little fortune and need to always be kind of on the half rebuilding side.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they're never going to spend enough to never rebuild or never like take a step back to move forward. Like the peak of those Billy Bean Oakland years, they were running on these kind of like 3 years winning 90 something games and then 3 years winning 60 something games. And it was on it was on shorter cycles. This wasn't the Rick Hahn lose for 7 years to win for one thing. But so maybe it's something like that. I think with pitchers in particular, those are the I don't mean to sound callous, but it's just, they're riskier. Assets. They don't last as long, or that you can't count on them to last as long as hitters. So I think, especially with pitchers, I mean, this year's you're not doing anything this year, so you're basically saying like he's here for 2025. If you wanted to extend him, I don't think it's like it's not what I would do, but at least it would signal some sort of like, all right, well, you do still need a lot of pitchers, and this guy is one, and we like him, and I wouldn't hate it, but really, the other thing that gives me hope is that the people on Twitter who are fans of other teams who are getting covetous of Fedde are smarter than I am, is what I would say. Like Rob Orr wants him on the Phillies. Rob Orr, who's over at BP, developed like the Seager metric and all those things, and is knows his stuff. He's been lusting after Fedde, so
that's a good sign.
So it's real, and so like that means other organizations. This isn't just like, oh, if Flexen's ERA is a little bit low, other teams are gonna no, other teams are gonna see that he's actually pitching well for real, and hopefully you can get commensurate value. Because like, look, if you can't, if you're going out of town for a weekend, like you don't buy a ton of perishable stuff and put it in your fridge, right? Like you just
right. Right, exactly. You need
trade it to somebody for a can of beans, and that you'll eat when you get back.
That's right. Yeah, a longer shelf life. Let's move on to the future a little bit here, and some things that might be a little brighter. The White Sox Double-A pitchers, and I know it is Birmingham, so it's an easy place to pitch in theory. They seem to be thriving. Thorpe, Iriarte, Mason, and even Kai Busch. Is this a glimmer of hope percolating here, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, they dumped a lot into building up the pitching inventory in the minors. They basically only acquired pitchers and catchers with their sell-off, to the point where it like kind of spooked me, where I was like, are you guys just doing this out of fear, or are you actually trying to get the best players you can? So no, they got plenty of arm. Even before the Dylan Cease trade, the BP top 20 prospects, 13 of them were pitchers for the White Sox, and 6 in the top 10 were pitchers, and that didn't include. I don't think that included Cannon. Maybe it did. No, I think they've got plenty of. I think they've got plenty of arms to move forward with and say, hey, we're good here to just do the ordinary course of adding guys into the system as we find them. I don't think they need to like go out of their way to build this up anymore. I think there's the bones. I don't want to skip too far ahead of your next rotation. I will say Thorpe, the fun thing is like when they acquired him, I remember I texted a friend of mine. I was like, I'd heard the changeup was absurd. And I was like, is it as cool as they say it is? And he was like, it is 99th or 100th percentile in like literally every TrackMan, like
holy
chase
shit.
rate, swing rate, like it's an absurd pitch. Thorpe seems cool. So any prospect where it's like, yeah, you have one thing you do better than anybody is always like, all right, like, I'm listening. That's like, you own that skill. No, I think they've got plenty of arms. I think they got plenty of arms, and I'm not worried about that side of the ball at all.
For where side of the ball, a little thin, but to very thin. The offensive side, like even just getting a little glimpse of Brian Ramos, who does look like he is probably a major league player, even though maybe it's a little early for him to be. But then you start running out of people real quick. Not a lot of guys you can name where you're like, oh yeah, that guy will probably slot in somewhere. Like that's the concern. You got to go mine. You got to go mine a bunch of Tommy Phams, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe I'm blanking on his name because I was actually I'm pulling up the DM I had with Ben Spanier Ben Spanier's the Baseball Prospectus guy who scout who sits the most on White Sox. He's based near the Carolinas. He sees the most of their stuff. And I'm gonna remember the name. I sent him a message which was just Brooks Baldwin ?
He's hit the shit out of the ball so far.
Yes. I think what scares me probably more than anything else about me ever seeing this team be decent again is that the most similar thing with the Hahn era is everyone knows about Colson Montgomery. Most people know about Brian Ramos now. Everybody knows about Eric Caro.
Yep.
That's it, man. That's all the bats.
Right.
And we've even seen, like, for all that we complain about Robert and Elliot Moncada, like they were all like have been above average major leaguers to some degree at some point. Which,
I was going to say they all pretty much hit, Nick. They all pretty much hit. None of them, Robert maybe is still a superstar, but they've all hit basically are decent major leaguers. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, so it's like that is still it's disappointing. It sucks that it's because they can't stay healthy all the time. That makes it more like frustrating. But like that was always the thing with the rebuild that freaked me out. It was like we've got this guy and this guy and this guy. It's like you've got like 5 or 6 guys, and your plan is basically they all hit their 90th percentile outcome, and that's it. And anything else is crashing into the mountain. And that's not how this works. Like I remember building prospect lists, even when the White Sox system was still good, like 2019, 2020, and I was reviewing these lists, and it was like the White Sox top 10 was like good, competitive, but 10 to 30 was awful. And like the Rays 25th best guy, 30th best guy. And it's like, look, you need that because most of these guys aren't going to work out. Right. It's just the nature of the beast. And hopefully they get some positive. Maybe Brooks Baldwin turns into like an actual sort of plus, first guy off the bench sort of thing, spot starter sort of guy, and like is a really cool, useful player. And he comes out of nowhere to do that, and that's awesome because the White Sox never do that, and you need that badly. You need at least one of those guys every year to just fill these. So you're not like, all right, we'll sign Kevin Pillar, and if he sucks, our right field is a disaster. Like that's the type of thing you end up doing. So.
Yeah. So. In the comments, Steve's asking about Wilfred Veras. Now, Veras has good numbers right now, but he has 31 Ks to 2 walks so far. So that's not encouraging at Double A. Like it's like a 31% strikeout rate or something like that. I don't know.
You laugh,
little ugly.
But we all laughed. We all doubted Mike Rodolfo, and he's collecting his 3rd MVP in a row. And
what league is that?
Yeah, I hope Wilfred Veras like owns me. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he's awesome. I mean, I think I saw that Cespedes is like in the Mexican League now or something like that. Like, I remember people saying, "Oh, I'm glad we didn't sign Harper because he would block Cespedes or something." It was cope. It was people in mentally precarious places, so I forgive them. But sure, Veras is at least has upside, which is great. But I don't know where the bats are coming from, and anyway, yeah, I don't know where the bats are coming from, and they haven't shown any competence of like translating these guys to the majors. Fortunately, the guy in charge now has nothing to do with that.
He didn't have hands all over that. Last question: what's the fastest path back to mediocrity for my White Sox? Our White Sox. Nick, I just want a mediocre team. I can watch.
What's mediocre?
I can watch it. I can watch.
Like is 75 wins mediocre? Is
75 to 85, somewhere in there. That little band right there. Because now that team makes the playoffs once out of 3 years or once out of 4 years, and like I yearn back for the Kenny Williams GM days when like they're gonna win 80 something games, and I know they probably won't get past the Twins. but at least they're going to be pretty good. And like I'll watch them in whatever it was 2010 where they went like 20-6 in June, and I was like, yeah, we got a shot, and we didn't. But regardless, those are fun teams to watch. I just
Better
want
than
some of
that.
that back. That's all I need.
I mean, what's so part of this dovetails with this is informing some of the things I was talking about in the last segment is normally I would just say, look, you're not committed to paying anybody except for Luis Robert at this point. You can just go sign some guys. Just go sign some guys, and it doesn't need to be, sign Juan Soto by all means. But like, it doesn't have to be that guy. It could be I guess a few players signed. I'm trying to think, like, who did I see signed Lourdes Gurriel signed a 3-year deal.
Right, affordable, something you could actually do. Yeah.
But here's the thing: is those dudes aren't free agent. Those guys aren't. There's nobody good anymore. There are no bats who hit free agency, and this is what drove me. This is what drove me nuts about the talking point with the White Sox in particular. They're obsessed with pitchers getting paid. They're so scared of pitchers getting paid. You can hear it. Like Reinsdorf will bring it up and be like, "Oh, like pitcher getting paid like this much money," and everyone's like, "Oh, pitching is so expensive." There are always pitchers available. Is this thing? There's always pitchers available. Pitchers hit free agency, and you need to be smart about it. You need to sign. But like pitchers both hit free agency, can be found later in the draft than good hitters can. And you can do goofy stuff to like soup them up, and they pop up out of nowhere much more than hitters do. Like go back and look at the number one pitching prospects on most prospect lists for the last like 10 or 15 years. A lot of them are like not even didn't even make it at all. Like they all get hurt. The control is like comes and goes. Like the stuff doesn't like work the way you think. Like I was increasingly, as I was on my way to hanging up my Spurs as like the minor league prospect editor over at Baseball Prospectus, was like, I was, it was not my original idea, but I was starting to endorse harder and harder. Like we should drop every pitching prospect like 20 spots. Like they just shouldn't, they don't like, how's Forrest Whitley doing? How's Alex Reyes doing? How are so the fact that the White Sox went all in on pitching prospects is like, it will be useful. Some of them will be good. But I think it's so much easier to like, or it's much more feasible to say like, we're going to build up our position player base. And then if we have gaps in the rotation, we'll go sign, Wade Miley. We'll go sign.
That's why you brought in Bannister in theory, right? This is why you would bring in a guy like that, because help you find these guys.
Like if those guys are your fourth and fifth starters, if those guys are middle relievers for you, like they're available. Like those guys are always like the free agents for starting pitching next year. There's so like Max Fried is like a free agent that doesn't have Walker Buehler, Shane Bieber. Like there's so many guys and so many guys on options that might not get picked. Like Jordan Montgomery was freely available. Freddie Peralta's got a club option, I guess, but like I'm just reading names now, but like go look at the bats. There's nothing. Actually, look, the best free agent bats that I could see that weren't Juan Soto are Gleyber Torres, who's 28. Will be 28. Maybe play second base for you. Yeah. But maybe that's somebody you try to fill in that second base hole with. Alex Bregman, who'll be 31 and hasn't hit for power since he like stopped cheating or whatever. And like I don't know. Then the only guys under 30 who are free agents are like Victor Robles, like guys who are just kind of like, I don't know what everybody talks about, how declining the Moncada and Eloy options is like a foregone conclusion, but like, what are you doing with that saved money? I don't know who you're paying it to. I don't. So I think they kind of, unless you want to try to pay Pete Alonso to be another first baseman for you and who can't make contact into his 30s. I don't know where you're finding the bats. I really don't. I don't know where you're finding them. People don't hit free agency. All the people when they missed on Harper and Machado were like, oh, they'll get Betts and Arenado. They didn't hit free agency. Yeah,
no one does. Yeah, unless they're super uber high Soto, free agents. The Otanis and Sotos. Well, everyone else is locked in long term. They get themselves a good deal, and then no one lets them go.
Maybe, and honestly, maybe this is kind of like the Fetty thing. Maybe go bigger on Asian free agents. Like maybe, I know San Francisco gave $100 million to an outfielder from the KBO.
Yeah.
Haven't checked on how he's doing, but they did that. So you got to get creative. Trades. Maybe you figure we solve the middle up the middle, and then we do platoon goof stuff and left and
The
right.
rest of the spots.
Teams have made that work.
Mm-hmm.
I just that's what scares me about. I mean, and that, and not to be like an actual bummer, and not like the White Sox are bad. Like that doesn't affect anybody really, but is like Clevenger, like I don't know what
Why?
the plan. Why I don't know what the
Why?
plan is here. You have plenty of dudes you could throw at those innings. Clearly, you're not getting anything for him in a trade. Clearly, if anybody wanted him, they would have signed him. He was a free agent,
Right.
so
couldn't move him last year. No one signed him. They let it go into the season. No one
And
cared.
last year when you signed him, at least you could say we didn't know.
Right.
Now you know. And you signed him anyway.
You've seen the market effects,
which is almost like just planting a flag, and which does have that Royals gets Dayton Moore thing of like, we think bad people are like a market inefficiency, or we're doing some weird like missionary thing where we're trying to save them or something. It's like, because they wanted to sign Luke Heimlich, they wanted to just weird.
That's right.
They had the Wes Helms, they had Vizquel. Those were Chris Gatt's guys. So
yeah, not good.
Not to end on that note, but I actually genuinely think the run prevention is going to be fine. I'm actually kind of talking myself into Gleyber Torres being like a nice little free agent signing for some team, and he fits the roster. I think he could still play second well, and the Yankees won't need him anymore. Any hitting free agent under 30, either something's gone horribly wrong or they're very rare. DeYoung was actually, I think, the youngest free agent shortstop on the market this year at 30. It doesn't happen.
Crazy.
It just doesn't happen.
They don't get out there. That's
maybe you destroy people in trades because Rick Hahn lost another trade, even though he's not. Even though he hung it up, he still lost another trade. Did you see that Alex Call is raking for the Nationals right now?
I did not. No, this is like the second time, because like the first time they brought him up, he struggled, but now he's actually hitting.
Oh yeah,
good for him.
Nobody loses trades like Rick Hahn, man. He doesn't even keep doing it anymore to lose trades. Alex Call, it's a tiny sample. Alex Call's hitting 313, 476, 375. It's like 20 plate appearances, but
still getting on base that much is impressive for that.
Well, because they traded him. Who did they? He was traded for Yonder Alonso. So
yeah, it's going way back there.
Yeah.
Nick,
so no, if Getz doesn't do that, Jacob Gonzalez, I guess. If I don't know,
there you go. There's a guy. Maybe he put on muscle. He put on Blake Rutherford's muscle in the offseason.
He stole Rutherford's muscle.
He did. He put the muscle suit on. He's ready to go. He's in for power.
It's ruthless, but it's a tough business, man.
Nick, thanks for discussing Getz and Hahn similarities, poor roster construction, Bannister, Maldonado, Fetty, and some potential light at the end of the tunnel. Remember, we ain't trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. Do you have anything you want to plug before you go?
I am going to get my YouTube channel going up again over at Beeps Media. Nick_BPSS if you want to hear more complaining.
This is thoughtful complaining, though. See, this is okay. So I've been a little vocal about, Sox fans are so down in the, and you have every right to be down in the Sox. I just can't hear the same thing over and over that isn't like something thoughtful. This has been like therapy when it's actually thoughtful, and so I'm appreciative of you and your Twitter account, Nick. How dare you?
It was very helpful. Like as I was doing laundry and listening to Tim Hill throw that ball into right field, I was starting to. I could feel my getting irritated. I was like, oh no, I'm just gonna go talk to Beef about that.
That's right.
Well, it'll be fun.
Good.
I'm glad he did that. It's funnier that he did that.
Exactly. Well, good talking to you, Nick. Take care, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That was Nick Schaefer. That was great. Nick has a lot of thoughts on this team. He always has. So it's really good to finally get him in here and get a chance to talk to him. Next week's guest, I actually think I might go solo next week, where we might not do a full 108 podcast. So I might have some thoughts on this White Sox team to bring back to you. So maybe I'll come and do a shorty next week. Thanks to Punky's Pizza and Pasta and all the 108 family who's up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, hitting those comments. And we'll see you very soon. I love all of you. Bye-bye.